You ever seen a $2,000 business suit wading through waist-deep sewage, screaming at the local news while her shiny white Tesla floats down the street like some fancy bathtub toy? Because that's the scene burned into my brain the day Cordelia Blackstone's little HOA kingdom finally drowned, right where she'd said my grandfather's pond was stealing water from her precious community. I swear when karma comes for these HOA types, it brings its own flood. That soggy red paper she was waving around, that was the $50,000 lien she slapped on my front door 2 days before pay up or lose your family's land. All because I refused to drain the spring-fed pond my grandfather built back in '62, the very thing keeping her $1 million lawn from becoming a swamp. Now she's out here Chanel heels lost in the mud, while her perfect neighborhood turns into a disaster zone for Channel 9's cameras. The stench, diesel rotting grass, and raw sewage, a recipe Mother Nature cooked up special for arrogant people who think bylaws outrank physics. You want to know how I got here? Let me back up a sec. My name's Marcus Rodriguez, but in these parts, folks just call me Tank Leftover from 25 years designing flood control for the Army Corps of Engineers. I thought I'd seen every kind of bureaucratic land grab until Cordelia Blackstone turned up with a smile sharp enough to cut steel and a legal pad full of bad intentions. I inherited this place 3 rugged Colorado acres after Sarah, my wife, lost her fight with cancer. She loved that pond. We scattered wildflowers there every anniversary, and when the time came, I scattered her ashes there too under October mist that still gets caught in my throat when I think about it. My grandfather wasn't some hobbyist. He was an old-school waterman. Built everything by hand, channeled that natural spring into a retention pond that's kept this valley safe from floods for 60 years. He knew water, he knew land, and he taught me to trust both more than any paper pusher. Cordelia didn't see a legacy. She saw a water feature violating regulations she rammed through while I was planning Sarah's memorial. I swear the woman arrived at my cabin in a cloud of perfume so thick it could fumigate a warehouse platinum hair business suit that probably cost more than my truck stilettos punching holes in my gravel driveway, a handshake cold as a mannequin. She called my pond unauthorized water hoarding, told me I had 30 days to drain it or face fines. My blood boiled when she called Sarah's passing an indisposition like grief was a traffic ticket. Turns out while I was burying my wife, her husband Bradley, local councilman, real estate hustler, held an emergency HOA meeting with no community input, just enough to push through rules targeting surprise-only my pond. Other water features got grandfathered in. Mine, the centerpiece of their scheme. See, Cordelia's real business was buying up distressed land, flipping it to developers for condos. My pond and its water rights were the golden ticket. My land was the keystone to her $1 million dream. That evening, I watched the sun ripple gold across Sarah's pond, heard her voice in the wind, "Tank, you never back down from a bully." She was right. So I braced myself for a fight. 3 days later, she came back with Derek, a jittery 20-something with a clipboard introduced as the certified water usage inspector. Kid looked like he'd borrowed his mustache from a Halloween store. He tried flashing credentials that looked fresh off a printer. Certified by who I asked. He stammered about the Colorado Water Management Bureau, so I reached for my phone. "Mind if I check?" Derek nearly fainted on the spot. Watching that circus, I thought of my grandfather Mijo. Check the papers. Trust him never. Derek's inspection was an hour of him snapping photos, scribbling nonsense, and measuring water depth with a Home Depot yardstick. Cordelia waited like a shark at feeding time. He finally declared unauthorized water retention, mosquito violations, excessive water accumulation, the works. She slapped me with a $5,000 water theft penalty, quoting the HOA's community welfare like she was reading scripture. Next day, my neighbor Frank, old-timer steady as mountain stone, brought the local paper. Local resident hoards water while neighbors face drought. They'd painted me as a hermit, stealing life itself, photoshopping my crystal spring to look like a muddy cesspool. Sarah would have cried. I just got mad. Cordelia had declared war on someone who'd spent a quarter-century outmaneuvering federal bureaucracy. I spent 3 hours digging at the courthouse, came up with gold. My grandfather's original deed, full mineral and spring water rights, ironclad since 1962, predating the HOA by decades. Every drop of that spring was legally mine, permanent, untouchable. I called Jake, my old Army buddy turned environmental lawyer, who whooped when he read the paperwork. Tank, they can't touch you. That's legal kryptonite. But Jake's research uncovered something colder. Bradley Shell Company had been snapping up land, burying long-timers under fines, then lowballing them for their properties. My pond wasn't an accident. It was the last domino before their luxury condo project could go up. Cordelia doubled down at the next HOA meeting, stacked the room with newcomers who didn't know a spring from a sewer. She flashed horror movie slides of my pond claimed dangerous bacteria, mosquito threat to children. I'd tested that water for years. It was cleaner than city tap. Still, the board voted to raise my fine, threatened daily penalties, even barred me from my own pond. That night, I set trail cameras. Within 48 hours, Jackpot caught Derek dumping dead fish in my pond for evidence, then snapping photos. Later, Bradley and two goons were out surveying boundaries, plotting foundation lines on land they didn't own yet. Classic developer playbook. I called a meeting original residents only. Showed them the photos, laid out the conspiracy. Frank the Hendersons, old Pete Morrison, we'd all been hit with bogus code violations. Chickens, gardens, landscape offenses. The pattern was clear. Drive out the old-timers, grab the land cash in. So we formed the Pine Ridge Heritage Committee, made ourselves official, started digging through records, cross-referencing every violation. Sure enough, every long-timer had been targeted. Cordelia's new friends, not a single citation. Then came the nuke, a lawsuit, restraining order, and a health inspector named McGrath, who'd never set foot on my land but claimed my water teemed with E. coli and Giardia. Jake's sleuthing proved McGrath was on Bradley's payroll. My fine ballooned to $30,000 with threats of foreclosure. But I called in a favor. Dr. Maria Santos, water scientist from CSU, showed up with federal-grade testing gear. Her results made their reports look like kindergarten finger painting. My water was purer than bottled. We spent weeks collecting evidence, camera footage, bank records, the original HOA charter, which I found in a dusty courthouse cabinet. Thank you very much. That required unanimous consent for water rules. My grandfather's pond was written into the bylaws as protected infrastructure, flood prevention for the whole valley. Jake hit them with legal artillery countersuits for harassment conspiracy, demanded a forensic audit. Our little committee grew old-timers, a retired cop, even a university professor. Soon the FBI was sniffing around Bradley's shady finances. The harassment escalated, anonymous threats, vandalism rumors spread through the neighborhood. I documented everything, trail cams call, log screenshots. Then the big storm hit. Right on schedule, with my pond drained by court order, the water had nowhere to go. Flooded streets, sewage backing up basements, filling with water, everything I'd warned them about. And just as the town meeting began, with news crews rolling, I stood at the podium, showed them the evidence, fake inspections, bribed officials, doctored health reports, developer blueprints with my spring as their luxury amenity. And then right on cue, Cordelia's precious Tesla floated by the windows, storm water up to the headlights, the HOA president screaming at the world about her unfair treatment, while the FBI handcuffed Bradley and the sirens wailed for real. Physics doesn't care about politics. Water finds its level every time. That storm washed away more than lawns. It exposed everything. Within days, Cordelia and Bradley were under federal indictment. The HOA's power crumbled. Neighbors old and new came together for the first time in years, sandbagging, fixing, rebuilding. The pond became a community project protected forever by law and by the people who finally saw what it was worth. Frank told me, hauling mud from his basement tank, "We almost let those parasites destroy what your grandfather built to protect us all." The Heritage Committee became a historical society, and the Sarah Rodriguez Memorial Scholarship started sending kids to college for environmental engineering, paid for by the court settlement. Turns out justice really does roll downhill sometimes. So tell me your HOA horror story in the comments. What's the craziest thing you've seen a power-hungry neighbor do? And if you stuck around for the end of this tale, hit subscribe. Smash that like button. And remember, sometimes the good guys win, especially when they know how to fight with facts, friends, and a little help from physics. Knowledge is power, community is strength, and water always finds its level. So next time someone comes for your legacy, make sure you're ready to stand your ground.